This is your stimulus package update for Wednesday, December 23, ND 2020. We at Stimulus Review have marvelous news as President Trump has declined the small $600 direct payments placed in the coronavirus relief bill. Here is what President Trump had to say in a recent video.
Throughout the summer, Democrats cruelly blocked COVID relief legislation in an effort to advance their extreme left-wing agenda and influence the election. Then, a few months ago, Congress started negotiations on a new package to get urgently needed help to the American people. It's taken forever. However, the bill they are now planning to send back to my desk is much different than anticipated. It really is a disgrace. For example, among the more than 5,000 pages in this bill, which nobody in Congress has read because of its length and complexity, it's called the COVID Relief Bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID. This bill contains $85.5 million for assistance to Cambodia, $134 million to Burma, $1.3 billion for Egypt and the Egyptian military, which will go out and buy almost exclusively Russian military equipment, $25 million for democracy and gender programs in Pakistan, $505 million to Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama, $40 million for the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which is not even open for business, $1 billion for the Smithsonian, and an additional $154 million for the National Gallery of Art. Likewise, these facilities are essentially not open. $7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico, a provision to promote the breeding of fish in federal hatcheries, $3 million in poultry production technology, $2 million to research the impact of down trees, $566 million for construction projects at the FBI. The bill also allows stimulus checks for the family members of illegal aliens, allowing them to get up to $1,800 each. This is far more than the Americans are given. Despite all of this wasteful spending and much more, the $900 billion package provides hardworking taxpayers with only $600 each in relief payments. And not enough money is given to small businesses, and in particular restaurants, whose owners have suffered so grievously. They were only given a deduction for others to use in business their restaurant for 2 years. This 2-year period must be withdrawn, which will allow the owners to obtain financing and get their restaurants back in condition. Congress can terminate it at a much later date, but 2 years is not acceptable. It's not enough. Congress found plenty of money for foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interests, while sending the bare minimum to the American people who need it. It wasn't their fault. It was China's fault, not their fault. I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple. I'm also asking Congress to immediately get rid of the wasteful and unnecessary items from this legislation and to send me a suitable bill, or else the next administration will have to deliver a COVID relief package, and maybe that administration will be me, and we will get it done. Thank you very much.
President Donald Trump's surprise Tuesday night video cataloging his complaints about the massive and painstakingly negotiated $900 billion coronavirus relief bill immediately raised the specter of a government shutdown and economic turmoil at a time when aid is desperately sought from millions of Americans. The president didn't explicitly threaten to veto the bill, and his White House said earlier in the night that he would sign it, but in a video released on Twitter, he added a layer of confusion to a delicate process that includes not only COVID-19 relief but a $1.4 trillion omnibus spending package that funds the federal government. The White House explicitly told Senate Republicans weeks ago that it supported pursuing the omnibus, all 12 appropriations bills tied into a single big package, and those negotiations took place for weeks. The White House was fully aware of what was in the bill and what was agreed upon. The White House officials acknowledged late Tuesday that Trump himself had not received a detailed briefing on the package before its passage. Most of the items the president listed off as problematic in his Tuesday night video weren't from the COVID relief piece of the package, they were from the omnibus. Most, if not all, of those items were similar to items in past spending packages the president has signed. Most notably, two people involved with the matter say, the president is fired up about the foreign aid in the package. Again, that has been part of each spending package he's previously signed, but Trump was riled up in part by commentators on conservative media who complain about the aid, according to people familiar. As for his request to amend the bill, well, both chambers have passed the legislation, and at this point, aides on both sides say, there's no plan to make any move to acquiesce to the president's request on the cleared package. Early talk is that both sides may just ignore it and see if he cools off. The government is operating under a 7-day continuing resolution, so there's some time here. The real deadline is December 28. Maybe he'll become obsessed with something else and forget about this whole episode, one senior Democratic aide told CNN. Or maybe he'll just blow the thing up. Perfect coda to his time in office. But at the moment, aides on both sides of the aisle are mostly just dumbstruck. It's a weird thing where I'm not at all surprised because of course he'd do this, but also kind of stunned because he's been so preoccupied with everything else that this seemed in a good place, one senior Republican aide told CNN. Multiple GOP aides and senators, along with many White House officials, told CNN they had no warning that the president's shift against the package was coming. White House officials had said in the days leading up to passage, and after, Trump intended to sign. Democrats, however, have seized on the president lobbing up a belt-high fastball for them. Speaker Nancy Pelosi will move on Thursday to pass legislation for $2,000 direct payments by unanimous consent. Republicans repeatedly refused to say what amount the president wanted for direct checks, Pelosi tweeted Tuesday night. At last, the president has agreed to $2,000. Democrats are ready to bring this to the floor this week by unanimous consent. Let's do it. This will almost certainly be blocked. It only takes one member to block a unanimous consent request, and there are plenty of Republicans opposed to the direct payments at that size. But it will present an immediate split between Republicans and Trump at a time the party is in the midst of simmering war and just days before the crucial Georgia Senate runoff races. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer called on Trump to sign the package passed this week, and then work with Congress on enlarging the direct payments. As to the size of the direct payments, that's been an issue Trump has talked to aides about for several weeks. According to two officials who spoke with him, the $600 level was actually the proposal of his Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, his lead negotiator on this entire deal, both the COVID relief and the omnibus. Mnuchin was on television Tuesday selling the merits of the deal. While Trump had advocated for higher payments, he never explicitly threatened to torpedo the bill if they weren't included, a person familiar with the matter said. Finally, at any point, the president could have entered these talks himself and, without question, had a major effect. He simply never did. He tweeted. He'd occasionally comment in giggles. He was briefed on them by Mnuchin and National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow, but he never directly engaged. He was a passive player at most, and more often than not, completely absent, according to senators and aides in both parties. Trump has been almost exclusively fixated on his efforts to overturn the election, paying attention to little else in recent weeks. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed the content, Please like and subscribe at the bottom of the page, as this will afford you immediate updates and also help us build this channel.